So how are you doing, Karen? Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks,
we are obviously here in London again,
Yes.
and we're in the middle of the Frieze Art Fair, so we're very glad to be here, of course. As Plogix, as you all know, we've been showcasing pretty much artworks from talented artists this whole week. We have 6 screens around the art fair this week, all on rotational mode, and today we have one of our key artists here, Karen Silver, so we'll ask her to give us a little bit of her background and tell us a little bit of what got her into art, how long she's been into art, and what's so unique about her artworks.
Okay, basically I started photographing things about, I don't know, 35 years ago, and I would live with some artists that worked a lot with light and fiber optics. And I was quite fascinated by the color spectrum. Do you know when you'd see a crystal and it would shoot a light, or the sun would go on it and it would make like all these reflections?
I'm a big fan of crystals, by the way. I love crystals.
Me too. I have a great collection. I started making huge soap bubbles and photographing them. And so, I'd have the camera around my neck and I'd make huge bubbles, and then I'd drop the thing and shoot what I saw within the bubble. And really, my art's always been about, like, I'm a photo artist as opposed to a photographer. Do you know what I mean? I use the camera as my paintbrush. And what I found is that I'm fascinated by reflections and shadows and things that are not apparent at first glance. In other words, you can look at something, and what I noticed is I noticed the reflection in the window of the trees that are across the street. So that's mostly what I photograph, is reflections of things. So then I got into shooting with the split screen, and I started shooting like that, like looking at things split, and it kind of proved that sacred geometry is actually real. There's so many faces, people saw the same things in my images. And then I started shooting reflections of water, which is on these screens, but that's what the work here is all about, water reflections of boats and pieces of stuff.
So how long have you been doing art, and has it always been this this unique approach to reflections and,
always.
And water?
I've been doing it probably about over 30 years. My first show, I showed on huge light boxes. So everything's always been big too, 2 foot by 3 foot. Now the stuff's more like 3 foot by 5 foot or a 5 foot by 7 foot. People have said that my stuff would be great in, here's the plug, in hotel lobbies, in buildings and stuff. So I actually have come to London to meet more people to try and get my art more saleable.
It's good that you say that, because actually hotels are one of the next places that we're looking at. As a matter of fact, we're currently in conversations to install some screens at some of the chains, so it's still a long way, but it's definitely one of the places where we want to get more involved.
Yes.
Which leads me to my next question is, how do you feel about, obviously, the public display of artworks in such places, such as what we are doing with Plogix, and particularly around when you have such art fairs that are pretty well known, where you have people from all over the world coming in to iconic areas like London?
I would say that I find it very innovative, very forward thinking, and really smart. Everything's changed since the pandemic, obviously, and how people buy art is different now. People would be it's like a scent. People wouldn't buy a scent without smelling it. People wouldn't buy art without seeing it in person. And now I think that everybody's become much more familiar with purchasing online and seeing things digitally. That this is, I think, my fourth, like we did Times Square, Vegas, Art Basel last year, and Waterloo Station. And I ended up with more followers because of it. I didn't sell anything yet, but aside from my part, I think that to have the opportunity I'm in London, there's a double-decker bus there, I'm from Canada, I'm sitting here with a coffee, and I'm talking to one of the owners of this incredible gallery. People are walking by looking at us. Look, the girl on the bus is checking us out. It's pretty cool what you guys are doing.
Is it, Karen, a little bit more challenging for you as an artist to, obviously with the online growing and presence, like for us, I know that there are certain artworks that are easier to show online as opposed to like maybe your works are quite unique, based on obviously reflections and unique lighting patterns. And is there a little bit of a struggle to really, you know, have people experience your artwork in digital form? Or
no, in fact, interestingly enough, my work looks best backlit.
Okay.
So when I first started shooting, my first show was on 2 foot by 3 foot old-fashioned light boxes.
Yeah.
And then I did a show in Vancouver about 20 years ago where they didn't even have LED screens, and I used a luminescent physicist out of Massachusetts that built these LED screens that I still have. The hours are insane, and so they were backlit, and so now it's the perfect medium for the art. For me, I mean, I've printed on paper and then I mount on plexi, and I've printed on material, but I think best is either mounted on plexi. I've printed on metal and also digital. It's brilliant. So I don't have any challenge with it. It's fantastic.
And next question would be: is there any particular iconic artist that you really inspire you, or you're admired by, or that actually, you know, made you want to get more involved?
Well, I don't know how well he's known over here, but his name is Michael Hayden. He's 80 now. He has pieces in Epcot Center, in O'Hare, Chicago.
Yeah.
His piece of light like that. He works in fiber optics and neon. He is iconic. Canadian artist, but also American, well known. His work's incredible, and he's really worth looking up.
Excellent. So, and then, you know, obviously you've been in several of our showcases, Karen, and is there any particular place where you think that it would be, you know, ideal for us to also host a new showcase, or any
Yes.
particular landmark? Because for us, I think it's all about experiences, and we obviously want to expose as many artworks, as many artists as possible, and really have memorable experiences, not just for the people viewing it, but for the artists themselves. So is there any particular city? I mean, we've talked about different artistic cities. I know there's a lot that we have in pipeline, but I wanted to know from you if there's any particular that...
I think, you know, when you talk of experience, I think that, you know, I went to the Tate Modern on Saturday mornings just to see some of the stuff. And what is interesting is how people, you know, either walk through a gallery or they sit and they look at the art. So having an injury at the moment, that I could sit somewhere and watch a screen. So I think it would be interesting to put them in places that, like, you almost have to create, like where a gallery uses movement or a seat, what can you do outside? Because your screens are outside.
Yep.
So how can you get people, as opposed to them just stopping and looking, because they don't, because everybody's like this, right?
Yeah.
So they don't do that. So what could you do? Like maybe there's a company that sells like a stool. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? So you could have like 4 stools near your digital screens, so people could actually experience it.
Yeah.
And I think as far as city, I mean, that's, you could get creative with it. You know, maybe it's greenery, or it ties into the art somehow. I could definitely talk to you more about what I see that way, I think. And I'd probably like to come back to you with more options than I would say off the top of my head. LA comes to mind just because it's a very interesting city that always has stuff going on that's quite fascinating, right? So, but I would also, I don't know, I'd like to think about it more, because I probably have a bunch of suggestions, if you're open to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things, 2 more questions actually. One of the things that we've been thinking of is obviously hosting a physical a gallery, physical in the sense like a physical place, but actually installing some screens inside so that we had more, I guess, versatility in terms of what we're showcasing. So similar to what we're doing now, but an actual place for an extended period. You think that's something that would still obviously be interesting for artists?
There was an artist out of Canada, I can't think of his name at the moment, but he shot a bunch of whales underwater. And he showed at a pier in New York City, in a warehouse at a pier, and they were huge images. And one of the things I've been thinking of doing is projecting my images and then you would print if you wanted to buy something, and maybe have a book or something. So it might be an interesting way to do it, like have a lot of projectors and project the images and do it in some kind of really interesting space. I mean, people want to interact now, and I think that being able to immerse people within the art to experience it at a different level, I think you need to be clever. You can't just rent a box and put it there.
So lastly, Karen, when you create art, is there a particular, do you do it because it creates a feeling for you? Is it an experience for yourself whilst you're creating it, or is it more something for the viewers, or creating experiences for those that are viewing it? What about creating art, really stands out, or what does it make you feel?
So I don't make the art to sell it or share it even. I make it because it kind of just like, it makes my cells happy. It just like, I see something and I feel it and I photo it, and then I get a sense from the photo. And so when I share it with friends or even at a show, people are like really amazed. They're like, oh my God, I can feel this. Or a lot of people go, the bubbles of being like the old big soap bubbles are like, they're like portals into other places, right? So I think we live so much in a way that people don't feel things, that I think that helping people feel things in any way you can is really important to the survival of our species. In truth, it's really about just making us feel better. And so I feel good when I shoot. That's basically it.
Well, thank you very much, Karen. It's been a pleasure, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your time here in London and the rest of the art fair.